To explain how I came to my views about gay marriage, I have to tell you about Sam. Sam was one of my wife's students when she taught English and German at Tehachapi High School. One evening when my wife Rhea wasn't home, Sam called and was clearly deeply distraught and needed somebody to talk to. He told me he didn't know how to go on because he had done something horrible. I asked him what he had done, but he couldn't bring himself to tell me. So I asked Sam, well, did you kill somebody? Sam's tone immediately went from distraught to indignant. Of course not, he explained. Well, then did you hurt somebody, I asked. No, came Sam's reply with a bit of irritation in his tone. Okay, did you steal something? Building on his earlier indignity, he replied with clear frustration at my obtuseness, no. Well, Sam, are you sure that what you did was actually such a bad thing? You've used up all the bad types of things I can think of, was my reply. By this time, I'd come to the suspicion that Sam had discovered that he was gay and was suffering from the shame a teenager coming to that discovery would feel. This was all happening in the early 1980s. As it turns out, Sam came to accept himself as a gay man and found home and companionship in the LA area. It's been quite a while since we've heard from Sam, but he has on occasion dropped by when coming through Tehachapi to visit his family. This conversation with Sam and the many conversations that I've had with teenagers tormented by their realization that they are homosexual has convinced me that sexual orientation is not something one chooses. Each of us is given our sexual orientation by God. This is a realization that is further supported by my knowledge that I did not make a conscious decision to be heterosexual. God made me that way. I didn't get an opportunity to choose this for myself. The gays and lesbians amongst us are sons and daughters, our brothers and sisters, our cousins, our neighbors, our colleagues. They can also be our friends. Giving gays and lesbians the right to declare their love for the one that gives special meaning to their lives does not diminish in the least that right for those of us who find a soulmate of the opposite sex. Quite the opposite, granting that right to bring all of us as a society closer to the American ideal of allowing each of us to find meaning in our lives unfettered by the prejudices of others. It brings us all dignity. It declares our collective rejection of hatred for some of God's creation. It makes us better as a nation. Thank you.
The recommended action on this is to receive and file. Perhaps there'll be more discussion on the next item, but I wanted to ask Mr. Barman one thing. He talked a little bit about his opinion. What is your response to the U.S. Justice Foundation opinion, Mr. Barman, relative to your own?
Through the chair, Supervisor Watson, I do not have that opinion. I haven't received it as of this morning. I'm assuming it largely recites arguments that shortly after May 15, the arguments started to appear, and in some ways I had somewhat, I was hoping that the courts would, when the Supreme Court made its decision, it remanded to the appellate court, first appellate court, to implement the decision and move forward. And I was thinking there'd be some time for state officials and the legislature to straighten out statutes and, in other words, put the house in order a little better. That did not happen. And in fact, the arguments that were made for staying, in large part, the court decision postponing the implementation of that statewide, these arguments continued to be made. I saw them almost within 2 weeks after the May 15 decision. Before June 16, when the opinion was final, the court has reviewed most of those arguments and refused to stay the opinion of the Supreme Court. In other words, there's been no effort by the courts to postpone, delay, or otherwise interfere with the Supreme Court's decision as it came down. And the state officials, as some of you know, Department of Public Health, Bureau of Vital Statistics, changed the forms very quickly. They were within 2 to 3 weeks after the decision, before it was implemented or effective, those forms were changed for the marriage license and certifying the marriage, and those forms are now being used throughout the state. But I haven't seen the opinion, but I would, as I said in my concluding remarks, the arguments that the legislature needs to act to clean up the statutes has no force and effect with the courts. And relying on that, that's about where it is. I haven't seen the opinion. I don't know if they have something new, but I've been open to receive the opinion.
Mr. Barman, what would happen if Kern County or any other county attempted to define marriage in its own ordinances? Would that withstand the test?
Through the chair, Supervisor Watson, no, it would not stand the test. There's no way that can happen. It's a statewide issue. The court in the Lockyer case, I didn't want to get into this morning, but that's exactly what San Francisco did. They attempted illegally to perform same-sex marriages. And that same law applies to us. We cannot contravene state law as defined by the Supreme Court. And in 1954, in Beeler versus Beeler, the court ruled that the regulation of marriage and divorce is solely within the province of the legislature, except as the same may be restricted by the Constitution, or expanded by the Constitution, or interpreted by the Constitution. So we are a nation of the Constitution is a law interpreted by our courts. Whether at the Supreme Court, you may like what Justice Kennedy does do or doesn't do in recent cases on Guantanamo, remember? And all these cases that are coming out, they're 5-4. And often we like what they do, sometimes we don't. But lawyers do not, and judges do not have an option. They must abide by the rule of law. We have an oath, and we have the state bar rules of professional conduct do not allow us to go outside of that.
Thank you. Well, not to stop the discussion, but I will make a motion to receive and file, and then perhaps there will be more discussion on the next item.
Any other comment from the board? Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you. I'll second the motion. I, too, am frustrated by the action of the Supreme Court to overturn the will of the people. There's no question that that's the vast majority of the state of California, those that voted to protect a traditional definition of marriage. As I stated the last time we were here, I supported Prop 22. I will support Prop 8. Those positions don't change in my from my perspective. However, what some are asking us to do today, we are not able to do. Were we to draft an ordinance that is contradictory to state law, we would lose. Even the opinion of the U.S. Justice Foundation and the documents that accompany it to us, that as it was sent to me, I don't know if anybody else got it, even those very documents indicate that the county would lose, and the county's coffers would be then open to those who we would have to pay plaintiffs' fees when that decision comes down. It's not responsible for us to take a position that cannot be enforced. That doesn't change. So let me just back up for a second. What I'm trying to articulate is that some of you are asking us to stop something that we are not able to stop. But I recognize that many people are frustrated. I'm frustrated. But until the law is changed, this is the law that I think we have. So I will support the motion to receive and file, and let it go with that. Thank you.